The Deep Space Monitoring Station hummed with its usual background chorus of electronic pulses and quantum communication threads. Lieutenant Elena Rodriguez had worked the night shift for 3 standard cycles, and the monotony typically blended into a white noise of cosmic surveillance. Tonight felt different. Her fingers danced across the holographic interface, tracing anomalous energy signatures that didn't quite match any known spacefaring profile. The quantum resonance scanners, typically as predictable as galactic clockwork, began to flutter with impossible readings. Something was emerging from the quantum substrate, a phenomenon that should have been mathematically improbable. "Captain Hiroshi," she called, her voice steady despite the mounting tension. "You're going to want to see this." Captain Nakamura moved with the deliberate grace of a veteran space officer. His cybernetic eye, a standard augmentation for deep space command personnel, scanned the readouts faster than any biological eye could process. The left side of his face remained impassive, but the organic right eye widened almost imperceptibly. "Magnify Sector 7 Delta," he commanded. The holographic display expanded, revealing a spatial distortion that defied conventional understanding. Where empty space had existed moments before, a silhouette was taking shape. It wasn't emerging from hyperspace or traditional warp corridors. Instead, it seemed to be assembling itself, molecule by molecule, as if materializing from pure potential. The ship's design challenged everything in the Confederation's extensive database. Its hull didn't reflect light so much as absorb and reshape it. Geometric patterns shifted and realigned, suggesting a material technology so advanced it bordered on the organic. Sharp angular lines suggested aggression, but there was an underlying complexity that spoke of something beyond mere military design. "Communication protocols?" Elena asked, her fingers hovering over the translation matrices. Hiroshi shook his head. "Not yet. Continue passive scanning. Whatever this is, it's not following any known approach vector." The station's eye, a distributed consciousness networked across multiple quantum processors, began compiling data. Its linguistic algorithms started mapping potential communication patterns, searching for any recognizable signal structure. Usually, this process took milliseconds. Now, it was struggling, recalibrating repeatedly. "Impossible," muttered Dr. Samira Khan, the station's chief xenolinguist, who had quietly entered the command center. Her dark eyes reflected the shifting holographic display, analyzing every minute detail. "The dimensional coherence suggests a technology beyond our current understanding. Look at how it's interacting with space-time itself." The ship continued its impossible emergence. Standard measurement tools became unreliable. Distance, velocity, mass, all seemed to fluctuate. It was as if the vessel existed in multiple potential states simultaneously, collapsing into observable reality only when absolutely necessary. Confederation protocol demanded immediate alert and defensive positioning. But something about this arrival suggested that traditional responses would be catastrophically inadequate. "Prepare communication bands," Captain Nakamura ordered. "All frequencies, standard and quantum channels." Elena's hands moved with practiced precision. The communication array powered up, its massive quantum antenna arrays spinning to life. Each array could translate millions of potential communication matrices per second, but something told her that would not be enough for what was approaching. The ship was now fully visible, though visible seemed an inadequate description. It didn't so much occupy space as suggest the possibility of occupation. Its hull seemed to breathe, to pulse with an internal rhythm that suggested consciousness beyond mechanical design. "Unknown vessel," Elena transmitted, following standard first contact protocols. "This is Confederation Deep Space Monitoring Station Epsilon 9. Please identify yourself and state your intentions." For several breathless moments, nothing happened. Then, a response began to form. Not in words, not in any traditional communication format, but in a complex quantum signature that threatened to rewrite everything they understood about interstellar communication. The universe, it seemed, was about to introduce humanity to something entirely new. The quantum communication matrix rippled with an energy that defied conventional understanding. Dr. Samira Khan leaned forward, her augmented neural interfaces struggling to process the incoming transmission. What began as a chaotic burst of quantum information slowly crystallized into something resembling language, but not a language any known species had ever encountered. "It's adaptive," she muttered, fingers flying across holographic interfaces. "The communication matrix is literally constructing itself in real time." Captain Hiroshi Nakamura watched the linguistic decryption process with growing tension. The Confederation's most advanced translation systems, powered by distributed quantum intelligences, typically parsed alien communications within microseconds. Now they were being systematically challenged. The communications center of the Epsilon 9 station transformed into a hive of concentrated activity. Linguists, communication specialists, and synapsych worked in a synchronized dance of analysis. Each team member brought a unique perspective, attempting to unravel the mystery of the incoming transmission. "Pattern recognition is impossible," reported Luis Martinez, the station's senior communication analyst. His hands moved in complex gestures, manipulating holographic data streams. "It's not that the message is encrypted. It's that the very concept of encryption is being reinvented with each microsecond of transmission." Dr. Khan's neural interfaces began to translate fragments. Bits of meaning emerged like fragments of a cosmic puzzle. The transmission wasn't just a message. It was a complex quantum state that carried multiple layers of potential meaning simultaneously. Approaching neutral zone, the first coherent fragment emerged. No hostile intent. Yet. The word "yet" hung in the communication space like a razor's edge. It wasn't a threat, precisely. More like a statement of potential, a warning wrapped in clinical precision. Confederation protocol demanded a measured response. First contact scenarios were meticulously planned, with thousands of potential interaction models studied and simulated. But this scenario existed beyond any known parameter. "We need to understand their motivation," Captain Nakamura declared. "Prepare a comprehensive response packet. Include cultural context, scientific achievements, diplomatic intentions." Elena Rodriguez began assembling the response. The communication package would be a comprehensive snapshot of Confederation civilization, its achievements, its philosophical foundations, its peaceful intentions. Standard procedure dictated a transparent, non-threatening approach. But something about the incoming transmission suggested that standard procedures would be woefully inadequate. The quantum communication continued to evolve. What began as a simple transmission became a complex landscape of potential meanings. Each decoded fragment suggested a civilization that approached communication as a form of advanced problem-solving. "They're testing us," Dr. Khan realized suddenly. "This isn't just communication. It's an assessment." The station's quantum AI began constructing response models. Millions of potential communication scenarios were generated and evaluated in nanoseconds. Each model suggested a different approach, a different potential outcome. Luis Martinez noticed something peculiar in the transmission's underlying structure. "The communication has a rhythm," he said, a note of wonder in his voice. "It's not just information. It's almost like a form of mathematical poetry." Indeed, the transmission carried an almost musical quality. Not music in the traditional sense, but a complex mathematical harmony that suggested intelligence far beyond conventional understanding. Each quantum packet was both a message and a meta-commentary on the act of messaging itself. Captain Nakamura recognized the profound moment they were experiencing. This wasn't just first contact with an unknown species. This was an encounter with a fundamentally different way of conceptualizing communication, intelligence, and interaction. "Prepare full-spectrum response," he ordered. "Include mathematical proofs, cultural archives, scientific achievements, but keep it precise. No unnecessary information." Elena Rodriguez understood immediately. The response needed to be a distillation, not a comprehensive dump of information, but a carefully curated demonstration of their civilization's capabilities. As the response packet began to take shape, nobody in the station could shake the feeling that they were participating in a moment that would fundamentally reshape galactic understanding. Whatever was approaching was not just another spacefaring civilization. It was something entirely new. The Confederation's battle group assembled with practiced precision. 3 advanced species, the crystalline Zorans, the energy-based quantum collective, and the biomechanical syndicate of Nexus, represented the pinnacle of galactic military technology. Their ships formed a perfect geometric intercept formation, each vessel a testament to centuries of technological refinement. Admiral Krillax of the Zoran Command watched the holographic tactical display, his multifaceted crystalline body refracting light in intricate patterns that reflected his internal calculations. "Prepare quantum resonance cannons," he commanded. "Full-spectrum defensive matrix." The human vessel approached with a movement that defied standard spatial mechanics. It didn't simply move through space. It seemed to negotiate with space itself. Where traditional ships would make trajectorial adjustments, this vessel appeared to slightly bend the very fabric of space-time around its hull. Commander Sophia Chen, stationed on the Confederation's primary observation platform, watched in growing disbelief. The tactical computer struggled to plot the human ship's movements. Its vector calculations changed multiple times per microsecond, creating a motion that looked almost like controlled chaos. "Impossible," muttered tactical analyst Diego Ramirez. "Those acceleration rates should liquefy any known biological or mechanical structure." The first salvo came from the Quantum Collective's lead vessel, a concentrated burst of pure energy that could vaporize most known ship designs in milliseconds. The human vessel didn't dodge. It didn't even attempt to raise shields. Instead, it absorbed the attack. The energy wave seemed to ripple across the vessel's hull, its angular surfaces shifting and realigning. What should have been a devastating attack became something more akin to a light show, the energy dancing across the ship's exterior before seemingly being redirected. "Recalibrating," announced the Zoran tactical system. But there was something new in Admiral Krillax's tone, a note that might have been interpreted as concern if emotions translated across species so differently. The human vessel responded. Its counterattack wasn't a weapon in any traditional sense. It was a complex quantum manipulation that seemed to unravel the defensive matrices of the Confederation ships. Shield generators flickered. Quantum stabilization fields collapsed, not through brute force, but through an almost surgical precision that suggested a fundamental understanding of each ship's technological infrastructure. One by one, the most advanced vessels in the Confederation fleet found themselves systematically neutralized. "They're not destroying," Sophia Chen realized. "They're disabling." The difference was crucial. A standard military engagement would seek total destruction. This felt more like a calculated demonstration, a precise display of overwhelming capability designed to communicate something beyond simple combat. Tactical Officer Hiroko Tanaka tracked the engagement with increasing amazement. "Look at the energy distribution," she said, pointing to her holographic display. "They're not just defending or attacking. They're analyzing with each interaction." Indeed, every defensive maneuver, every quantum pulse seemed to gather information. The human vessel moved like a living system, adapting in real time, learning from each millisecond of interaction. The syndicate of Nexus vessels, renowned for their adaptive biomechanical designs, found their most sophisticated systems becoming increasingly simplistic in comparison. Where they had complex defensive protocols, the human ship demonstrated an almost intuitive understanding of technological interaction. 7 standard minutes. That was all it took. An entire battle group, representing the most advanced military technology in known space, reduced to disabled vessels drifting in the cosmic void. No casualties, no complete destruction. Just a comprehensive, almost clinical demonstration of technological superiority that felt more like a warning than an attack. As the last ship's systems powered down, a single transmission emerged, crisp, precise, devoid of any emotional content. Defensive capabilities demonstrated. Communication channel remains open. Admiral Krillax understood then that everything they knew about technological warfare had just been fundamentally challenged. This was not an enemy. This was something entirely new. A species that viewed conflict not as destruction, but as a form of communication. The universe had just been introduced to humanity's true nature. The forensic analysis lab of the Confederation Research Station looked more like a cathedral of scientific wonder than a typical research facility. Holographic displays danced with impossible data streams, while some of the galaxy's most brilliant minds worked to unravel the mystery of the disabled human vessel. Diego Martinez carefully manipulated the fragment of hull material using molecular-level manipulation fields. His hands, augmented with precision quantum interfaces, moved with surgical delicacy. Each movement revealed another layer of complexity that challenged everything scientists thought they understood about material engineering. "This is not advanced technology," he muttered to Dr. Elena Rodriguez, the chief technological researcher. "This is something else entirely." The whole fragment defied conventional analysis. Its molecular structure seemed to exist in multiple states simultaneously. Where traditional materials had fixed atomic bonds, this material appeared to have negotiable boundaries. It wasn't just adaptive. It was alive in a way that blurred the line between engineering and organic systems. Dr. Samira Khan reviewed the spectral analysis, her neural implants processing data at speeds that would overwhelm a standard biological brain. "The material composition is a hybrid," she explained. "But not a deliberate hybrid. It looks more like a solution." The distinction was crucial. Most advanced civilizations created technology through intentional design. This looked more like a problem that had been solved through creative improvisation. Quantum physicist Luis Ramirez highlighted a particular section of the hull fragment. "Look at these molecular junctions," he said, excitement creeping into his typically reserved voice. "They're not engineered. They're improvised." The implications were staggering. The ship's technology didn't follow a traditional design philosophy. It appeared to be a living solution to complex engineering challenges. Each component seemed to have multiple potential functions, ready to be repurposed at a moment's notice. "It's like the entire ship is one massive adaptive algorithm," Dr. Khan observed. "Not just the computer systems, the physical structure itself." Confederation scientists had encountered adaptive technologies before. The quantum collective's living ships came close to this level of complexity. But those were carefully designed over centuries of research. This human technology felt different, like something born from necessity rather than careful planning. Diego Martinez discovered something even more peculiar. The hull fragment contained microscopic structures that seemed to repair themselves, not through pre-programmed repair protocols, but through what could only be described as creative problem-solving. "These are not nanobots," he explained to the assembled research team. "Nanobots follow predetermined repair algorithms. This looks more like biological problem-solving translated into material science." The weapon systems presented an even greater mystery. Fragments of the ship's defensive systems revealed technologies that shouldn't exist according to current scientific understanding. Energy absorption techniques that seemed to bend the fundamental laws of physics. Quantum manipulation capabilities that suggested a fundamental understanding of reality itself. Dr. Rodriguez began to piece together a hypothesis. "They're not just using technology," she said. "They're conversing with it." Each analysis revealed another layer of complexity. The ship's systems didn't just respond to challenges. They anticipated them, predicted them, solved them before they fully manifested. Luis Ramirez found an anomaly that would change everything. Hidden within the ship's quantum matrix was a series of computational traces that suggested something profound. "This isn't just technology," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "This is the record of problem-solving. Each system contains not just its current configuration, but multiple potential configurations it considered before selecting the optimal solution." The research team fell silent. What they were looking at was more than a technological achievement. It was a form of technological creativity. The Confederation had encountered many advanced civilizations. Some were older, some more mathematically precise, but none had demonstrated this kind of fundamental adaptability. The human ship wasn't just a machine. It was more like a living solution to complex challenges. As the analysis continued, the scientists realized they were witnessing something extraordinary. This wasn't technology developed over centuries of careful research. This looked like technology born from continuous, rapid adaptation. A culture that viewed technological limitations not as barriers, but as interesting challenges to overcome. Dr. Khan summarized their findings in a report that would shake the foundations of galactic scientific understanding. The human vessel represented more than an advanced technological system. It was a physical manifestation of a radically different approach to problem solving. We are not dealing with a new technology, her report concluded. We are dealing with a new way of understanding technology itself. The forensic lab hummed with the energy of a fundamental revelation. Humanity had just demonstrated that technology could be more than a tool. It could be a living, adaptive language of problem solving, a direct extension of creativity and will. The historical archives of the Confederation Intelligence Bureau occupied an entire quantum data complex containing the accumulated knowledge of thousands of civilizations. Professor Lina Wang specialized in emerging species development, her reputation built on meticulously tracking the technological and cultural trajectories of nascent spacefaring races. Her current investigation focused on humanity, a species that had completely defied every predictive model in galactic history. Just 30 standard years earlier, Earth had been categorized as a pre-spaceflight civilization, quarantined, considered technologically primitive and culturally fractured. The initial observation reports painted a picture of a world constantly on the brink of self-destruction. Multiple regional conflicts, technological potential constantly undermined by political divisions, a planet that seemed more likely to collapse than to advance. Something changed, Professor Wang muttered, reviewing the archived intelligence reports. The transformation was not gradual. It was explosive. Within a single human generation, they had moved from internal conflicts to advanced quantum communications, from rudimentary space exploration to technologies that challenged fundamental galactic understanding. Dr. Miguel Ramirez, a cultural historian specializing in rapid civilization development, had a theory. It's their approach to challenge, he explained during a classified briefing. Most civilizations view obstacles as barriers. Humans view them as interesting problems to solve. The archived reports told a fascinating story. Earth's technological leaps were not the result of unified global planning. They were the product of continuous, chaotic innovation. Universities, private companies, independent researchers, all working in a complex, competitive ecosystem that accelerated technological development at an unprecedented rate. Their space programs emerged not from centralized government initiatives, but from a combination of private entrepreneurship and academic research. Companies competed to solve increasingly complex challenges. Failure was not a setback, but a valuable data point. Each technological dead end became a learning opportunity. Military development followed a similar pattern, where most galactic civilizations developed weapon systems through carefully controlled research programs. Humans seemed to approach defense technology as a continuous problem-solving exercise. Their military research was less about creating weapons and more about understanding complex systems. Linguistic analysis revealed something even more profound. Human communication was fundamentally different from most known spacefaring civilizations. They didn't just exchange information. They negotiated meaning. Their languages were filled with nuance, metaphor, and adaptive interpretation. They don't just communicate, Dr. Ramirez noted. They explore communication. The psychological profiles were equally fascinating. Most galactic civilizations developed through stable, predictable cultural evolution. Humans seem to thrive on constant disruption. Their most significant technological advances often emerged from periods of maximum social complexity. Their response to global challenges demonstrated a remarkable capacity for collective action when truly motivated. Climate restoration technologies, sustainable energy solutions, medical breakthroughs, each emerged not from top-down mandates, but from collaborative, decentralized problem-solving. Professor Wong's most startling discovery was how quickly humans integrated technological advances. Where most civilizations required generations to adapt to new technologies, humans seemed to absorb and reimagine technological capabilities almost instantaneously. The vessel they had encountered was not an anomaly. It was a perfect expression of human developmental philosophy. They don't build technology, Professor Wong concluded in her classified report. They grow it. The implications were staggering. Humanity represented something entirely new in galactic development, a species that didn't just adapt to technological change, but actively transformed their entire cultural and technological landscape in response to challenges. Their quarantine, intended to protect the galaxy from a potentially volatile species, had achieved the opposite. It had created a pressure cooker of innovation, forcing humans to develop technologies that could overcome isolation. The Confederation had believed they were containing a potentially dangerous species. They had actually been incubating something far more significant, a civilization that didn't just explore the universe, but fundamentally reimagined what exploration could mean. The Confederation's Xenopsychology Division had never encountered a more complex analysis challenge. Dr. Sofia Martinez reviewed the intercepted human communications, her neural interfaces working overtime to process the multilayer transmissions. What they discovered was nothing short of revolutionary. Human communication wasn't just an exchange of information. It was a complex, adaptive system that seemed to transform with each interaction. Where most galactic species had rigid communication protocols, humans treated language like a living, breathing entity, constantly shifting, reinterpreting, finding meaning in the spaces between words. The first comprehensive communication analysis revealed multiple layers of simultaneous communication. A single transmission could carry literal meaning, emotional subtext, cultural reference, and strategic implication, all woven together with a complexity that defied traditional linguistic models. Dr. Louis Chen, the lead xenolinguist, discovered something even more fascinating. The humans didn't just communicate to exchange information. They communicated to explore information. Intercepted military communications were a prime example. Where most species would use strictly formatted tactical reports, human communications were filled with what could only be described as narrative complexity. Technical information was interwoven with personal observations, hypothetical scenarios, and what seemed like spontaneous humor. They're not just sharing data, Dr. Chen explained during a classified briefing. They're telling a story about the data. Psychological profiles revealed a species that viewed potential annihilation not with fear, but with a strange combination of strategic thinking and sardonic humor. Their communication intercepted during the recent engagement was particularly revealing. One transmission, translated from their internal communication, read, "Interesting problem. Spatial dynamics suggest multiple solution vectors. Recommend adaptive response with 0.03% margin of quantum uncertainty." The language was clinical, but buried within the transmission was something that no other species would have included, a subtle joke about the mathematical improbability of their current situation. Dr. Martinez noted how humans processed stress. Most galactic species had developed sophisticated psychological dampening technologies to manage high-stress situations. Humans seemed to use humor, creativity, and collective problem-solving as their primary stress management tools. Their military communications were particularly complex. Technical precision was mixed with personal commentary, hypothetical scenarios, and what appeared to be genuine concern for potential outcomes. It wasn't just about winning. It was about understanding. Psychological analysis suggested that humans didn't view conflict as a binary state of victory or defeat. They saw it as a complex problem-solving exercise. Each interaction was an opportunity to learn, to adapt, to understand. The xenopsychology team discovered that human decision-making processes were fundamentally different from other known species. Where most civilizations relied on centralized decision matrices, humans seemed to operate through a distributed adaptive network of individual and collective intelligence. Their strategic thinking was less about predetermined plans and more about rapid, collaborative adaptation. A potential crisis was not something to be avoided, but an interesting challenge to be explored. Dr. Elena Rodriguez, who specialized in interspecies cognitive analysis, found the most profound insight. They don't just respond to challenges, she wrote in her report. They redefine the nature of the challenge itself. The communication patterns suggested a species that had evolved to thrive in complexity. Uncertainty was not a threat, but an opportunity. Where most civilizations sought stability, humans seemed to generate innovation through continuous disruption. Their psychological approach to technology, to communication, to existence itself was fundamentally different. They didn't just adapt to change. They were change, a dynamic, constantly evolving system of collective intelligence. The Confederation's xenopsychology division realized they were not dealing with a conventional species. They were encountering a new form of collective intelligence, one that transformed the very concept of intelligence itself. Humanity was not just a civilization. It was a continuous, adaptive problem-solving mechanism. Biological, technological, and psychological boundaries blending into a single dynamic system of exploration and understanding. The final battle assembled like a cosmic symphony of technological might. The Confederation's armada represented the culmination of millennia of advanced spacefaring development. Thousands of vessels from multiple advanced civilizations formed a battle formation that would have been considered unbeatable by any known strategic model. Admiral Krelax of the Zoran Command studied the holographic tactical display, his crystalline body refracting light in complex patterns that mirrored his intricate computational processes. This was to be the definitive engagement, a complete and total erasure of the human threat. Commander Sophia Chen watched from the Confederation's primary strategic command platform. Her hands moved across quantum interface displays, tracking the incoming human fleet with a mixture of professional detachment and growing anticipation. The human vessels arrived differently. They didn't form a traditional battle formation. Instead, they moved like a living system, each ship seemingly aware of the others, adapting in real time to potential engagement scenarios. Where most fleets followed predetermined tactical algorithms, these ships appeared to be negotiating the very nature of the battlefield. Initial scans revealed something impossible. The human fleet was outnumbered by a factor of nearly 500 to 1. Standard strategic models suggested total and immediate destruction was not just likely, but mathematically certain. No one informed the humans of these mathematical certainties. The first wave of Confederation attacks demonstrated the futility of traditional engagement models. Energy weapons that should have vaporized entire sections of the human fleet instead found themselves absorbed, redirected, or simply ineffective. Lieutenant Diego Ramirez tracked the energy dispersal patterns. "They're not just defending," he reported. "They're learning from each attack." Indeed, each Confederation assault seemed to provide the human fleet with additional data. Their ships moved with a fluidity that defied traditional understanding of space combat. Where most species saw battle as a linear progression of attack and defense, humans treated it like a complex, adaptive conversation. Tactical Officer Hiroko Tanaka noticed something even more peculiar. The human ships weren't trying to destroy the Confederation vessels. They were systematically neutralizing strategic capabilities. Weapon systems went offline. Navigation became impossible. Communication networks collapsed. It wasn't destruction. It was a form of technological diplomacy. Admiral Krelax realized the true nature of the engagement. The humans were demonstrating capabilities, not seeking total annihilation. Each tactical move was a statement, a complex communication that went beyond traditional concepts of warfare. The Confederation's most advanced vessels found themselves systematically outmaneuvered, not through superior firepower, but through a fundamental reimagining of spatial engagement. The human fleet moved like a living ecosystem, each ship an interconnected node in a dynamic, adaptive network. Quantum communication channels became battlegrounds of information. Where traditional species would transmit tactical data, humans seemed to be negotiating the very nature of the conflict. One intercepted transmission captured the essence of their approach. Objective: demonstrate capability. Minimize unnecessary energy expenditure. Preserve potential future communication vectors. It wasn't a military transmission. It was a philosophical statement. As the engagement continued, the mathematical improbability became increasingly apparent. The human fleet wasn't just surviving against impossible odds. They were controlling the entire engagement. Strategic systems began to recognize a pattern. The humans were systematically isolating and neutralizing the Confederation's ability to coordinate, not through brute force, but through a complex manipulation of communication and technological infrastructure. Commander Chen watched in growing amazement as entire battle groups found themselves unable to communicate, navigate, or effectively respond. It wasn't that the humans were destroying them. They were rendering them irrelevant. The final moments of the engagement were not a battle. They were a demonstration. The Confederation's most advanced armada, a force that had maintained galactic stability for centuries, found itself completely neutralized, not through violence, through a form of technological and strategic communication that redefined the very concept of conflict. Humanity had just communicated something profound to the galaxy. They were not a threat to be eliminated. They were a force to be understood. The aftermath of the engagement hung in the cosmic void like a suspended question. Thousands of Confederation vessels drifted silently, their systems neutralized but their crews unharmed. The human fleet maintained a careful distance, their presence both a demonstration and an invitation. Dr. Elena Rodriguez led the first diplomatic communication attempts. Her background in xenodiplomacy and complex systems analysis made her uniquely qualified for this unprecedented moment. The transmission would need to be precise, nuanced, and fundamentally different from any first contact scenario in galactic history. What emerged was not an explanation. It was a revelation. Humanity had been watching. Not just the Confederation. Not just this section of the galaxy. They had been monitoring a threat that no other civilization had fully comprehended. A predatory species that systematically destroyed emerging spacefaring civilizations. The intercepted data was comprehensive. Detailed records showed how this unknown threat had methodically eliminated at least 17 potential spacefaring races over the past several millennia. Civilizations that showed promise of interstellar travel would suddenly go silent, their technological development abruptly terminated. "We are not conquerors," the human transmission explained. "We are guardians." The context unfolded like a complex narrative. Humanity's rapid technological development was not an accident. It was a deliberate response to a threat that existed beyond the Confederation's current understanding. Their quarantine had been a blessing in disguise, forcing them to develop technologies and strategies that could address a galactic-scale challenge. Admiral Hiroshi Nakamura reviewed the compiled intelligence. The predatory species, which humanity had been tracking for decades, operated through a sophisticated method of technological suppression. They would identify emerging civilizations, infiltrate their communication and technological infrastructure, and systematically prevent their expansion. The human intervention was not an invasion. It was a preemptive defense. Dr. Sophia Chen discovered the most profound detail in the transmission. Humanity wasn't seeking galactic dominance. They were offering protection. The demonstration of technological superiority was precisely that, a demonstration, a way of showing other species that a defensive option existed. The Confederation's historical records began to align with the human narrative. Unexplained technological collapses, civilizations that showed promise suddenly going silent. Patterns that had been dismissed as random now appeared to be part of a larger, more sinister design. Lieutenant Diego Ramirez compiled the strategic analysis. Humanity's approach was complex. They weren't seeking to replace the Confederation or dominate galactic politics. They were offering a collaborative defense mechanism, a way of protecting potential spacefaring races from a threat that existed in the shadows of galactic development. The transmission included comprehensive data, tracking methods, technological signatures of the predatory species, defensive strategies that could be adapted by different civilizations. It was more than an explanation. It was an invitation to collective defense. Professor Lena Wong recognized the profound diplomatic approach. Humanity wasn't presenting themselves as saviors. They were presenting themselves as partners. The entire engagement had been a complex communication, a way of demonstrating capabilities while simultaneously offering protection. "We do not seek control," the final transmission explained. "We seek collaboration." The data revealed something even more remarkable. Humanity had been developing these technologies in isolation, without external support. Their rapid technological advancement was the result of a species that viewed existential challenges as solvable problems. Admiral Krillax of the Zoran Command processed the information with his unique crystalline computational abilities. The human approach was not about conquest. It was about preservation, protection, a fundamental understanding of collective survival that transcended individual species boundaries. The Confederation found itself confronting a fundamental reimagining of galactic relationships. Humanity was not a threat to be contained. They were a potential solution to a threat that no one had fully comprehended. As the final transmissions were processed, a new understanding began to emerge. The galaxy was not just a space of potential conflict. It could be a space of collaborative defense. Humanity had just changed everything. Not through conquest, but through understanding.